And now let's introduce our first panelists. Okay, I just want to quote from the intro to this book, which is Clay Cane's Burned Down Master's House. Quote from the intro, "Yes, this book will make you uncomfortable, but discomfort is the extravagant price of truth." The book was, it said, quote, "written as a response to the widespread book bans and the political war against Black history." What could be more relevant? Clay Cane is a New York Times bestselling author and award-winning journalist, radio host, and political analyst. More than 3 million listeners tune into The Clay Cane Show on SiriusXM each week. His commentary is heard on TV networks such as ABC, MSNBC, Fox, and CNN, and his work has been featured in the Washington Post, CNN.com, and BET. He's the author of the instant New York Times bestseller, The Grift, whose subtitle is The Downward Spiral of Black Republicans from the Party of Lincoln. He is a graduate of Rutgers University, Phi Beta Kappa, with a BA in English and African American Studies, and lives outside New York City. And I will say that I've read this incredible book, and it's really gripping, riveting, important, essential. Letitia Gomez is the editorial director for Dina Books, an imprint of Kensington Publishing, which focuses on traditionally publishing high-quality fiction and nonfiction that centers on race, identity, and its impact on our experiences. Prior to joining the Kensington family, Letitia was a literary film television agent who specialized in bringing culturally diverse voices to the forefront. Now I'm going to ask Clay and Letitia to start their microphones and cameras, join us on the digital stage, and thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Good evening, everyone. Set in the American South, featuring the stories of real historical enslaved people that time and history has forgotten, Burned Down Master's House promises to be a powerful and empowering novel that will serve as a call to action for readers. These stories of rebellion will come together to form a fascinating narrative that explores identity, power, and resistance based on fact. And now, without further ado, I'm proud to present to you Clay Cane. Clay, thanks so much for joining us this evening. And my first question for you is, when was the idea to write Burn Down Master's House first conceived, and why did you write it?
Well, first, thank you for having me. And in this era where books are under attack, it means so much for me to be here. Thank you so much. So Burn Down Master's House has been with me for over 20 years. It began as a short story I wrote called Magnolia Row about two enslaved men who fell in love. And the story was inspired by real people in slave narratives, they were called at the time. And it was these quiet truths, these buried truths that we really rarely see in mainstream fiction. Then the novel expanded out of frustration when I heard people like Kanye West say slavery was a choice. When I saw former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley trying to erase the reason for the Civil War. When I saw Florida Governor Ron DeSantis co-sign a platform that there were personal benefits to slavery. And we're living in an era of misinformation and historical amnesia and lies. So I wrote this book to push back, to remind people that enslaved people were not passive. They resisted, they fought, they strategized, they loved, they dreamed. And so this novel is not only about resistance, it is about brilliant opposition. And it's about setting fire to the lies. And at a time when telling the truth can be dangerous, I wanted to create this epic, unforgettable story that's rooted in fire and pushing back. So this is a story of slavery that people have never read before in mainstream work.
Is it true, Clay, that you drew inspiration from Whitney Houston's quote when she said, "I love it when they had no choice"? And did the stories of your own ancestors from Goochland, Virginia, factor in at all when you were writing the novel?
Yeah, no, it is true. So in the introduction of the book, I quote the late great Whitney Houston when she was talking about her videos not being played on MTV. And she had one song that was so big called Saving All My Love for You. They were
Yeah.
forced to play it. And the quote is, Whitney says, I love it when they have no choice. And that stayed with me because that is what Burned Down Master's House is about, that the oppressors had no choice. This country didn't end slavery because they had a great love for Black people or because Abraham Lincoln adored Black people. It ended because Black people pushed back. And with any marginalized group, when they rise up, it is the group that pushes back that creates the change. So, as Reverend Otis Moss III powerfully said, that President Lincoln had the position, but Frederick Douglass had the power. So the country had no choice. And you see that in these characters, these real life characters in the book. And so, yes, this story was also shaped by my own ancestors in Goochland, Virginia. I'm from Philadelphia, but my grandfather was from Goochland, Virginia, an area that had that had slavery. And so all the main characters rooted in actual people, but all the secondary characters are named after my ancestors. And that was intentional. So this book in many ways is ancestral veneration. I wanted to honor them, to let their names live in this rebellion and this fire. And so this book in many ways is not just about history, but it's about remembering. Because to me, remembering is also resistance. Remembering is also opposition.
Yes, so we've already established that the main characters are inspired by real people. So how does the novel remember and honor these forgotten spirits?
I mean, this really gets to the heart of the book. I've always loved historical fiction. When I was in college, I was really inspired by Jubilee by Margaret Walker. I was inspired by Arna Bontem's Black Thunder. Richard Wright, he dabbed into historical fiction as well with Uncle Tom's Children. Those books really changed my life. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to challenge the narrative of slavery that we normally see, the lens that it goes through, to show that there are so many ways that people resisted, big and small. And their tragedies are often documented, but their courage is not as documented. And that's what we need right now, even in this moment. We hear about the tragedies, what's going wrong, what isn't happening. What about the courage? And so historical fiction, it gives me a freedom to bring their spirits back. And I think about where we are today, and this is so important with the theme of the book, is that if you were taught that resisting isn't an option, if you were taught that you should just lay down and play possum, if you were taught that there's no point in fighting back at all, then you aren't even going to try. And so with these characters, I'm not just telling a story, I'm filling in the historical silences. And I'm imagining these characters and their rage and their love and their strategies. And I'm saying that these characters, history may have forgotten you, but I have not. And so I hope that this is the way that I can immortalize them through historical fiction.
Interesting. Now, now you chose not to use the N word at all in Burn Down Master's House. Tell us what led to that decision.
Yeah, it was very intentional. The M word is not used once in this book. I didn't want to write another story about slavery littered with the N word. And to be honest with you, sometimes we see these books or these movies that have the N word, and it's almost like a cartoon. It's very Quentin Tarantino, where the word is thrown around more for shock value than anything else. And I explain in the author's note, there's actually some debate among scholars about how much the N word was used during slavery. It depended on region, the enslaver, the situation. So I didn't want to hang my depiction of these structures on just the N word because it's so much bigger than insidious slurs. It's more than that. You can never say the N word and still be a hateful person. So I'm talking about the systems and the smiles and the laws in the churches and the choices that people make every single day. And I wanted people, the readers, to feel these structures, even when the language is polite or coded. They're very nuanced characters. Even the white characters in the book are very nuanced because sometimes the most dangerous hate, it's the ones that don't really announce themselves. So I wanted this book to hold up a mirror to that, hold up a mirror. And again, it's not about revisiting the familiar, but it's about uncovering what has been hidden. So this is a different kind of truth telling. There's no flinching, there's no looking away. And I believe that the people who live these experiences, they will be proud that I didn't just douse their story in a bunch of racial slurs and some of the things you would expect to hear from a book covering the 19th century American South.
Thanks for sharing that with us. Hopefully, we have time for two more quick questions, Clay. You include a Black enslaver in this story based on a real person. Why was it important to include his character, and do you see any parallels in any controversial figures today?
Yeah, this character was really important to include. It's important to note, and I explained it in the book, that the small number of Black enslavers, they actually normally owned their family as a matter of protection. But there were a few who were very insidious, and they were actually competing with white enslavers, and they were doing their best to prove themselves. So I show that even in slavery, there were people who would harm their own community to get ahead, who would do anything for proximity to power. This is a very nuanced character. And for folks who read my last book, The Grift, you will see some winks to some people who say the same thing today that was said 200 some years ago. So that's definitely in there, and it's a really powerful and complex part of Burned Down Master's House.
Yeah, we have time for one more question, Letitia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I said we have time for one more.
I'm sorry. Okay, so Clay, you decided to end the novel with the words, "We will answer with fire." How do these words resonate with today's political and cultural climate?
Yeah, we're living in scary times right now, politically, culturally, spiritually. It feels like so many of the systems around us are collapsing. So this book is a call to action, again, not just to resist, but to be the opposition with clarity, with purpose, with strategy. And so when I say in the book, we will answer with fire, it's not about destruction for destruction's sake. It's about burning down what no longer serves us, burning down what was built to oppress all of us, and what burning down what was never meant to be to hold us in the first place. So it's a call to action. It's my literary call to action.
Mhm.
And for the reader, maybe, just maybe, there's something in your life that's holding you back. Maybe there's a freedom you need to fight for. Maybe there's a house in your life you need to burn down. So when I say burn down Master's house, I mean burn it all down. Start from the ashes. Fire is purification. Fire is clarity. Fire is transformation. And it is the ultimate call to action that this book stands for, and really stands for who I am and where I'm from. So I want to say thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be able to uplift the book in this way.
Clay and Letitia, thank you so much. And I'm just pausing on the term brilliant opposition, which we need so greatly right now. Thank you very much. I know everyone's looking forward to reading the book. I've read it. I love it. So congratulations.